Hi everyone, I am back for another episode this week to talk about UAP, Abduction Phenomenon. I want to thank everybody for tuning into my channel. I really appreciate it. If you like what I talk about, give me a thumbs up, even subscribe. I don't post a lot of content, I do post whenever I can, but I do appreciate the few of you who do tune in to listen to me talk. So, I wanted to talk about this week as to why we are possibly not being told the truth um, about ET contact and that we're being visited or infiltrated, as some people think, as Dr. David Jacobs suggests in his books Walking Among Us. So, yeah. So, I guess my first reason would possibly be that we are not being told the truth. It comes back to power, technology, money. 1947, the Roswell incident happens. The first news report comes out and says that the Army recovers a saucer, and then they retract their story and said, oh, it's a weather balloon, which that's understandable at that time because you don't want your enemies, such as China or Russia, or whatever, to know you've recovered alien technology. So, yeah, that would make sense. But to this day, they are still lying to us about what they actually recovered there. No, it was not a weather balloon. I definitely don't believe it was a weather balloon. I'm sure most of you guys don't. And I think at this point, I think it's more about a small group of people, naming people in the military, which I think is probably like a small group of generals, a small faction of people, of scientists who just wants to keep this technology for themselves, benefiting for themselves. They don't want the public to have it. They want to stay one step ahead of the rest of us with the technology, and they just want to keep it for themselves. I don't know if any of you guys ever read this book, The Day After Roswell by Colonel Corso. In his book, he talks about how some of the technology from the Roswell crash was sent out into public, such as schools and institutes, for them to see if they can reverse engineer. They didn't tell them where it came from. They just sent it out to them to see if they could reverse engineer it. And that's where they say that fiber optics came from, night vision, what else? What else? The laser, the microchip. I think Teflon, what police use in like bulletproof vests. He claims in this book that's where a lot of this stuff came from. So it's possible. It's a really good book. If you guys haven't read it, I think you should get it. Also, you need to get Richard Dole's Alien Agendas, a Speculative Analysis. That's a really good book. So yeah, so I think it comes down to you have this group of people who they just want to keep it from themselves. They don't want the rest of the public to have it. So they just want to benefit it for themselves. And maybe it comes out so down to like the oil industry also. You have this technology um, that can possibly get us off fossil fuels and is better for the environment. That oil industry is $1 billion industry. Can you imagine? Most of the people in that industry is not going to want to just shut that down and go to something else. They're going to lose out on it. So that would make sense also too. The other reason I think is probably a little bit more darker and awful for some people to think about. And the story goes back to 1954, and it involves President Eisenhower. So the story goes, I'm going to actually probably read a little bit from the computer. Actually, no, I'm not going to read from the computer because I know most of it by heart. So it was 1954. President Eisenhower was on vacation in California, and supposedly he disappeared. I think it was February the 20th through the 21st. And when he came back, I guess he had his people telling them that he had emergency dental surgery and so on and so on, and that's why he was gone. Now, if you do your research, he was actually gone for like those 2 days, but it wasn't for dental surgery. So supposedly he was taken to Edwards Air Force Base, which I think is Muroc Air Force Base now, and he met with these aliens or whatever. The first group of aliens he met with was the Nordic, the tall Nordic whites or whatever. And they wanted to make first contact with us, and they wanted to have open relations with us, but we had to disarm all our nuclear weapons. So the U.S. wasn't having that, so that was a no-go for us. So then the next group of aliens that showed up, and now supposedly these aliens were um, waiting out in space um, to make contact with us. And we were warned by the Nordics or whatever not to make contact with these beings, which were the Greys at the time because they couldn't be trusted. But anyway, President Eisenhower supposedly met with them. They came to some type of agreement, and the agreement was that the Greys could take a few humans and a few animals, um, do some kind of testing experiments on them, return them back. But it came to find out that the Greys weren't as honest and trustworthy as the military had hoped they would be, or government had hoped they would be. So the Greys supposedly started taking way more people than they were supposed to. They started mutilating animals and stuff, and so it got out of control. I mean, they gave us technology, but the technology wasn't. It was like old technology, some of their crafts or whatever. And it's kind of maybe kind of a believable story, because if you go back to Bob Lazar's story when he worked at S4, when he said he was brought to that hangar, he said he saw 9 crafts sitting in hangar bays, and he said that some of the crafts looked really beat up and worn, and like they had been through like a firefight. So maybe those crafts that he saw were some of the crafts that the Greys gave Eisenhower during that treaty or whatever. So I mean, it's entirely possible. So because I don't think Bob Lazar was ever told where the crafts came from. He just told us we had the crafts. He saw the crafts there, and he only worked on the one craft called the Sport Model. He never worked on the other ones. But yeah. So and it's I think it's highly possible that I mean it could be some truth to that story, because if you follow Linda Moulton Howe research, she talks a lot about animal mutilations and cow mutilations, and it happens, and there have been horrific cases of animal mutilations going on and stuff, and she talks about it on her channel. She has books written about it and stuff. So there's definitely some truth to these animal mutilations. Now, as far as human mutilations go, I haven't come across like human mutilations. If they are happening, then the FBI or the police or whatever keeping it quiet from the rest of the public. As if they are finding bodies that have been mutilated, they're not telling us about it. Who knows what they're telling the family? If they're telling the family of all they've recovered people, because you do have a lot of people go missing every year, and they just disappear up the first earth for face of the earth. They never show back up. If anybody have ever read David Paulides' books, Missing 411, those stories in there are creepy, and he talks about a lot of missing people, and there are people who are returned and they don't have any marks on them as to how they died, and some people are returned, they can't remember where they were, or it's people who've been taken who's been too young to speak, or they've had some kind of illness or autism, or it's people who are too old, and some of these people are never found. Some of these people are found in areas that have been previously searched. And there's been a couple of cases where kids come back with these weird stories of encounters and creatures and stuff like that. So now I'm not saying in his books that it is alien abductions. I mean, his stories, if you read his books, it just, you can't say it's just one thing. You just don't really get an idea of what might be happening to these people. People say portals, but if it is portals, why would the portals only open up in just like national parks? Wouldn't a portal just pop up in the middle of someone's house or a school or something? I mean, unless someone's controlling the portal from the other side, but I don't know. Then why are some people returned, some people aren't returned? I don't know, but that's my thoughts. But I mean, can you imagine? People would be really pissed to find out that the military government made a deal with these beings to abduct people. I mean, maybe that's why they're just not coming out and telling us that. I mean, people would flip out. They would really, they would really have something to protest and write about in Washington D.C. And the other reason I was thinking about too, maybe they have one. Maybe our military or government has wanted to come out. The secret keepers who've been keeping these secrets for decades, maybe most of them have wanted to come out and tell us that we have been visited or encountered. But maybe the aliens or whatever don't want them to come out and admit to it. They might want to remain in the shadows. And maybe they said, well, if you come out and tell us that tell your public or civilization that we're here, we are going to tell them that you let us abduct some of your people and your animals to experiment on, whatever. So maybe that's the other reason they don't tell us the truth. I don't know. But that's what my thoughts. So I would like to know what you think. Give me some comments below and let me know your thoughts. So, I don't know. I think that's all I have for now. If anybody know of any UFO conferences coming up, I know there's the conference coming up in September in Arizona, the UFO International Congress. Which I've gone to that one a couple of times. I'm not sure if I'm going to go this year. I kind of want to go this year, but we'll see. But yeah, David Polite is going to be there. I would love to go hear him speak. His books are just so amazing. His If you guys haven't read his books, you guys really need to read his books, and you also need to read Richard Dolan's book, Alien Agendas: A Speculative Analysis, and probably pick up maybe some of Linda Moulton Howe's book. But yeah, Missing 411 books are really good, and Richard Dolan's books are really, really good. And if you guys haven't started following Richard Dolan, I suggest you do so. He has his own personal website. It's called Richard Dolan. So you can just do a Google search. But I will drop a link below where you can go read about that Greater Treaty and give me your thoughts on it and let me know what you think. That's all I have for now. Until next time, bye.